My anaconda don't want that. Ah, come on, y'all know that song. The one where she got an itty bitty waist and a round thing in your face. For Sir Mix-a-Lot and so many others, those lyrics describe the ideal body type. Whether it's an aerial shot of young Miami and Cardi B twerking on a yacht, or Nelly swiping a credit card right down the middle, it's been clear that the booty is a blessing in all of its forms, but especially when it's thick with a whole bunch of C's. You know, a dumpy, a fatty, or the infamous BBL, aka the Brazilian butt lift. But why have we become so obsessed with a single body part? It all goes back to, you guessed it, slavery. You ever heard of Sarah Bartman? She was an indigenous South African woman who was enslaved. In 1810, two men lured her to Europe by promising her a better life. Instead, they put her on display as part of a freak show because of her backside. For years, she was known as the Hottentot Venus and subjected to harassment and exploitation. Even after her death, Bartman's body parts were put on display in a museum in Paris until 1974. Today, our bodies are still on display, but it's often by choice, from video vixens to Instagram models. The butt as a focal point of a black woman's body signifies desirability. But has this really given us any more autonomy? Because when one body part becomes the standard, it doesn't just shape what we admire, it shapes how we see ourselves. In the US, between 5 and 10 million people suffer from body dysmorphia. And for some, the butt is the first thing people want to change or enhance because they know the social value it holds. And when you add social media to the mix, that can translate into more likes, more money, or even more ridicule. You know, people saying the butt doesn't match the thighs, or that dumpy looks like a diaper, or talking about the way it smells, or just being straight up judgmental. Not to mention the health risks, given that BBLs have one of the highest death rates of any cosmetic surgery, at more than one death per 4,000 procedures. So with all that said, why do people still opt for more junk in the trunk, especially by way of a BBL? We know the problem. Now let's get to the root of it. I'm Paris Alston, and this is Rooted. Black women's bodies have simultaneously served as targets for discrimination, but also the blueprint for conventional beauty. We spoke with Dr. Salomé Wilfred, a clinically trained psychologist, about how unrealistic body standards like the BBL influence body image in society. So you are a clinical psychologist and a researcher, and you have delved into the rich, deep science of big butts. How did you get interested in this?
Yes. So it started back in undergrad where I was doing a lot of work in body image, generally speaking, right? A lot of research we were doing was how do we improve body image around college students. And a lot of the programs we had just weren't aligning, I think, with what I had experienced or my friends who were also of color experienced. So I, of course, recruited them to come into the project, right? Like all researchers do, bring your friends in. And while they all kind of enjoyed it, they also kind of had the same sentiment of it's not relatable to us, which then I think led into my work as my thesis in grad school, which was how do we kind of create assessments or kind of reframe our idea of body image and body dissatisfaction that's more reflective of people of color. 'Cause it's not so much thinness, but there's all these other aspects we're not taking into account that are influencing it that aren't being addressed at all in research.
And so then people will say, okay, if I can't achieve it, if I don't have it naturally, if I can't achieve it in the gym or don't
Yep.
want to, then maybe I can go get a Brazilian butt lift as a bit of a cheat code,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then you can achieve that, yet then you're faced with all of this judgment and scrutiny for doing that and sort of labeled and put into a certain category. So
Yeah.
why is that?
And it's unfortunate because I think there is research that shows how like deadly it is, right? So I think there's also that concern of people literally putting their life at risk for it. But
Yeah, nearly
beyond,
30,000 women
yeah,
or 30,000 people a year. Yeah.
yeah. And I think unfortunately what happens is women have, I think black women in particular, have been so objectified over the years, right? Where there's this idea of, okay, attain this, right? If you are going to be thin, okay, fine, whatever. But then be this way instead, right? Get the big butt, small waist, big thighs. And then you kind of get it, right? But then unfortunately, because I think black women have been historically over sexualized, that they become kind of they ostracized because of it, right? It's this backlash of you don't what we asked you to do, but now you're too much. Now it's too hyper focalized. It's too hypersexual, right? It's the idea of like that's not appropriate anymore. which then kind of just puts them at risk of, okay, I've done what you asked me to do, but now I get a backlash for it. So now what?
Yeah, and I mean, I imagine too, like it's also a slap in the face when we see women who are not black adopting this body ideal as well. We're
Yeah.
looking at you, Kim
Yeah.
Kardashian, and so many others. And right, everyone has the right to do what they want to do with their body, but what does that do to the psyche when you see that it's accepted in some forms and not in others?
No, you're absolutely correct. And I think it comes all like multiple body types, body features too, right? The big lips, right? The tan skin, all these things that are beautiful when they're on somebody else, but when they're on you, it's not okay. And I think Kim Kardashian is like a perfect example of what privilege looks like when it comes to bodies, right? She wasn't always this way, but then she shifted into like, okay, curvaceous is in now, the slim thick is in now. I'll go to that. I'll do all the things and it'll be glorified amongst me, right? I'll be more beautiful, more attractive. But I think as she's seen that body type become less and less desirable and less profitable, she has the privilege of shifting back into something else, right? And I think it's just like another I guess level of like microaggressions, right? This level of systematic oppression of you've given me a standard to reach. I've now reached it, but now we don't want it anymore, right? So it becomes this kind of constant narrative in our, I think, Black women's heads of it's never going to be it, right? Even if you do get to it, again, it's not good enough. And now it's not what we want anymore. So change it. This kind of constantly ever moving line that we're supposed to be trying to get to, but never actually able to reach because it doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, and it's kind of like it keeps being commodified because now you mentioned the idea of being slim thick, and there's the skinny BBL. So it's like, oh, it's a BBL, but
Yeah.
it's like a smaller version, which I would imagine feels like a slap in the face to women who are naturally voluptuous and have had this body type all along naturally, right? And people have been going to these extreme measures to get them, and now they're abandoning it, but people are still left existing
Yeah.
as they always have.
Yeah. That's exactly what happens, right? And I think that even just like puts another narrative, I guess, like narrative in the head of like never enough, unfortunately, right? It's we all have our body type. We all have one, right? It is what it is. But I think as you see these body ideals shifting, ever flowing, Black women are constantly left in the backlash of like, catch up. No, now it's too late, right? And now if you have it still, like, no, we still don't want that though. So it's glorified for a moment, right? They have their time, but it's so quickly shifting and changing that they're constantly kind of at this place of comparison.
And you've talked before about how online culture, especially on social media, shapes this sort of trending narrative, right? To where one body type may be in one day and another is in the next day. And we've got a lot of terms in addition to like the slim thick that will describe how these things change. You know, there's like the body T or the body yachty, which is an adaptation of Megan Thee Stallion's song. There's the fatty, there's the dumpy. And how does language contribute to the shaping of women's body image?
I love that question. I think language can be, I know, a double-edged sword to an extent. I think because language can be empowering, right? But there's that shift of like, when is, I don't know, whether it's called a fatty or this, not okay or okay. And I think in social media, like that's the perfect example of it. Of there's this theory called the social comparison theory, right? Where I think when you go online, you look for people who look like you to compare yourself to, right? So as Black women go online and they see these ideals, right, that's what they're trying to attain to, and the language I think therefore enforces it or like reinforces the idea of it of like attain this, get to this.
And what role can like the seeking of a romantic partner or being in a relationship play in that? Because I think about you shaking your head, Dr. Wilfred, and I think about men, for instance, who will say, well, if I'm in a relationship with someone, I want them to be natural, right? That's my preference. But then time after time, you'll see that they're like following all of these IG models or OnlyFans models, whatever it may be, who have this like BBLified figure. And it's kind of like, well, where is the disconnect?
That there's been not a lot, but some research on just like, I think when it comes to men of color particularly, of what they look for and what they want from their partners. And it's like you just said, right? It's like, I want that naturally, right? Which it becomes yet again, I think, unfortunately, another double-edged sword of, okay, you're asking for one thing, right? Be naturally slim thick, which of course we also know not everyone is, right? So then do the things to align with it, whether it's through BBLs, over exercising, excessive waist training, right? All those things, like, is that natural enough? And in the reality situation, they still kind of like, I think, unfortunately hypersexualize the BBLs, the slim thick, all those things, right? I think just reinforces the idea of hypersexualization of Black women, of like, I want you this way in only that context, right? When it comes to my partner over here, oh no, I want the natural stuff. That's what I want, because that's not going to be, again, super sexualized. It's not going to be sought after excessively, right? They won't be gawking after you. I want someone to gawk at. That's the BBL, slim thick, all that stuff. But as a partner, I don't want that from you. I want you to be all natural, which again, all natural is a icky word, and I wonder what is all natural, because I think there's also been a shift away from BBLs, which I think is a positive shift. But unfortunately, it's yeah, which is great, right? But I don't think the ideal's gone anywhere.
And so, how can we start to deconstruct some of these things?
I think work is being done in it, right? I think it's kind of body neutrality, body positivity, and it's not a fast process, unfortunately, right? I think we're seeing it in different ways, and I think there's this testament to historical factors too, right? Where there's such colorism in certain hair types that were so glorified that there's been a pushback against it slowly, right? There is movement happening. It's not as fast as we would like it to happen, but it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just kind of the same map, right, of like, let's push back it's not going to be a fast pushback, but finding ways of like, how do we find ways to like glorify our bodies still, which I think white women have started to do more, I guess, faster, unfortunately, right? And there's been this great push, I think, for white women to like embrace different body types that I don't think Black women have the opportunity to do so yet, because there's been the whole idea no one's even addressed yet, right? When it comes to thinness, that's been such a pushback that I think the world is kind of, not the world, people are trying to go against it. Well, I feel like slim thick isn't as old, that it's still more recent, and the novelty is starting to slowly wear off. And I think once novelty can start to wear off more, we can start to push it back against it about like bodies at every size and every type.
Now, I want to circle back to talking about BBLs, which we know are not medically necessary. It doesn't sound like in any case. Perhaps maybe if someone is dealing with excessive weight gain and wants to redistribute that their fat, right? But beyond that, I mentioned the scrutiny that women, and Black women especially, can receive for undergoing surgical enhancements like this. And in fact, there has been a social media trend. Have you heard of this? These BBLs are killing y'all. And this is where people will take pictures of BBLs in public and essentially body shame these people, right?
Yeah.
I find this so curious because obviously that's a very harmful thing to do without someone's consent. And I also wonder, is this an effort to shame people into body acceptance in a weird way?
I would be hard to endorse that, right? I think it falls back on the character aspect of it again, right? This kind of like separation of the individual, right? I think we think back historically, right? I think the book Shaving the Black Body by Sabrina Strings, where she talks a lot about how the Black body's been so disregarded and made fun of that it feels like it's a new updated version of that, right? Putting Black women's bodies on display to mock. So I don't see it as body acceptance as much as it is a new technical way, a new 21st century way, whatever you want to say, right? Of just doing just that.
And at the same time, I think it's often perceived that someone who chooses to get a BBL inherently doesn't love themselves, like doesn't love their body. Is that the case, or is it deeper than that?
I think we've seen that BBLs are like profitable, right? I think there's a level of, in certain spaces, profitability. I don't love saying these like overarching, a therapist in me, statements of like it's simply self-hate, right? That feels too simplification. It's simplified of what's actually happening. But I think there's a level of dissatisfaction, right? I think there is a level of body image concerns. So I don't know if it equates directly to self-hate, but there is, I think, some level of, if I'm going to change my body, I think it comes down to like, for why, right? What are you experiencing or hoping to experience by changing your body that you don't think you're experiencing now?
Can you definitively say, for instance, that if the reason is for money, that people with bigger butts are earning more in some spaces?
Oh, definitively. Definitively.
I don't know if that's psychologically accurate, but
I think it's so idiosyncratic, right? I think it's hard to do an overarching reason as to why, right? For some people, it could be profitable, right? That's what it is. For some people, it could be like, my entire family has this kind of body and I want it now. For some people, it could be like, I've glorified this body so that I want it. I don't think it's, again, point blank, but I think everyone does it for a different reason, right? But unfortunately, the outcome is like universal and similar for most of them.
Whether it is in a surgical setting or in a therapeutic setting, what is the role of a provider in helping someone who is experiencing this sort of dissatisfaction about their body, or who has gone through the process of getting a BBL and helping their patient or client?
I love that question for so many reasons, because like we started off, there's such limited work done in this realm, right? I think when it comes to body image, within Black women, there's such little being done, but there's so little that has been done, that I think a lot of the work I'm doing is like, how do we incorporate these concepts more naturally into these spaces? Because I think when it comes to any sort of like body cosmetology, there should be discussion with a therapist as to like why you're doing it, psychologically what's happening, right? And I think as a provider, I think you would approach it like any other thing, right? Like, what's the meaning behind it, right? What are your emotions behind it? What are you hoping to achieve from it? What do you feel like you are not having now or access to now that you believe this will get you that? And it becomes then like it's person centered, right? They direct where it goes. You just help them kind of you just ask the questions and guide them into like what aligns with their values.
And what about for the other women who may be in a person's life, and who, maybe they have a similar body type or don't, or maybe they're just someone who cares a lot about them? What are some tools that you might give to those people to help this person who's experiencing these feelings?
Yeah. I think a space, right? And I think just there is a level, I think, there of body positivity, of acceptance too, right? I think a lot with the clients I do work with who have body image concerns, it becomes, how do you focus on the functionality of it, right? It kind of becomes less about what your body looks like, but what it can do for you. So a lot of the work I'll do with my clients is like, look at your body parts and tell them what you appreciate about it, right? Whether it's just like, I appreciate my legs for helping me do a stair climber today, or I appreciate my arms for helping me open a door. How do we kind of take these, like, I guess, our body and see it more as an appreciation of like what it helps us do to function, as opposed to what I don't have or how I don't align with these made up ideals that are being pushed on us.
Yeah. And we know that, right? Butts of all sizes have a lot of function with our bodies, helping stabilize our core and our hips and our knees, all of the things. I think yet to be seen as to whether people who have BBLs have any other physical advantages, superpowers.
I haven't heard anything yet, but
But who knows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still leaving it open. Well, whether you have a pancake, a plum, or a big old juicy peach, here's to celebrating our bodies at every shape and size. We want to say a big thank you to Dr. Wilfred for showing us how we can do that. That's it for this episode of Rooted. Be sure to keep up with us on our social channels. And until next time, stay ready for that jelly, stay rooted, and as always, stay tuned.